Fame glitters like a diamond in floodlights, but every carat hides a cost. Terrence Howard says he first sensed that cost the night Diddy Combs kept buzzing his phone at 2 in the morning, begging for acting tips. Katt Williams swears the same number once dangled $50 million if he'd only hop a jet. No itinerary, no questions. Both men now claim those late-night invitations carried an unspoken fee. Hand over your man card, step beyond a velvet rope, and promise you'll never reveal what happens next. Their warnings collide just as Combs heads toward a May 2025 federal trial for racketeering and trafficking locked in Brooklyn's MDC after every bail request was shot down. Yet the real story isn't one mogul's court date, it's the centuries-old bargain that decides who ascends and who disappears. But Terrence's first warning sign was almost silent. Howard remembers rolling up to Combs' mansion with a stack of scripts, ready to coach. Instead, he found the mogul alone, music off, staring like a cat sizing up dinner. No scenes to rehearse, no notes, just a grin that felt like a dare. The next invite was for music feedback, but an assistant whispered, "He's trying to smash." Howard bolted, blocking numbers, ignoring every follow-up text that popped up at 3 a.m. Years later, on the PBD podcast, he explained the moment in a single line that froze the room. "Lose your man card, and you never get it back." Those words hit harder when you know his backstory. Howard spent most of the 1990s clawing through bit parts, soap opera walk-ons, sitcom cameos, anything that paid rent. Hustle and flow finally broke him out, but only after he mortgaged a house to buy time between auditions. That hard-earned climb made him extra protective of the last thing he felt Hollywood couldn't repossess: self-respect. He'd already watched friends trade privacy for press tours, authenticity for a shot at the Marvel machine. So when Combs dangled a shortcut, Howard recognized the bait and walked. Someone else had tried to slam that door years earlier. Long before any lawsuit, Katt Williams was the lone comic yelling fire in a crowded club. January 2024 on Club Shay Shay, he claimed he'd rejected 4 separate $50 million offers to protect what he jokingly called his virgin hole. Audiences laughed until the punchline began to sound like evidence. Williams described jets with no manifests, parties where phones vanished, and contracts written in invisible ink. Blogs labeled him paranoid. Studio execs quietly labeled him uninsurable. Yet Williams's resume reads like a daredevil's diary. Arrested for defending himself with pepper spray outside a Target, sued for allegedly slapping a Tractor Supply clerk, banned from half a dozen comedy clubs after roasting the owners on stage. He's survived more cancellation attempts than some comics have punchlines, and each time he comes back sharper. "Integrity is expensive," he likes to say, but regret costs more. Then Combs' indictments dropped, and the paranoid bits lined up with sworn affidavits. Overnight, Williams shifted from punchline to profit, the street preacher suddenly proven right by the evening news. But the whispers weren't only about bedroom doors. They spilled into wardrobe trailers. Since the late 90s, black comedians have swapped the same uneasy rumor. Before they crown you king, they zip you into a gown. Eddie Griffin baked it into Foolish, 1999, writing a scene where studio suits beg his character to slip on heels because all the A-listers did it. Dave Chappelle told Oprah he stormed off set when a producer dangled a frilly costume. Kevin Hart once scoffed, then donned a sparkly frock on SNL and watched his star explode. Katt calls it checking the humiliation box, a stress test to measure how far you'll bend for a blockbuster. Terrence claims he failed that test on purpose, and that failure cost him more roles than any box office flop ever could. It's not just about fabric, it's about leverage. If a gatekeeper can make you wear something you hate, what else will you say yes to at 2 in the morning? Hollywood, of course, has creative ways to punish a no. Look at the paper trail. Howard was the highest paid actor in Iron Man 2008, yet he vanished from the sequel after contract disputes. The studio spin blamed money. Howard says the real fight was over control. Control of his image, his salary tier, and his refusal to play ball when the backroom suggestions turned personal. Williams's calendar between 2012 and 2018 reads like a blacklist. Canceled arenas, talk show slots yanked, sudden renovations at venues hours before curtain. Publicists blamed scheduling, insiders whispered troublemaker. Still, both men clawed back on their own terms. Howard through indie gems like Cutthroat City and Triumph, Williams through self-funded tours that sold out before mainstream press noticed. They lost gatekeepers and found cult followings, a trade some call foolish, others heroic. While they rebuilt, Diddy's empire began to crack in broad daylight. Late 2023, a flood of civil suits painted Combs' parties as anything but harmless fun. Allegations of drugging, coercion, even a masked teen locked in a Miami room. Each complaint echoed rumors Williams had joked about for years. Phones surrendered at the door, contracts pushed across marble counters at dawn. Combs' legal team dismissed every story as fantasy. Yet more plaintiffs kept filing, and suddenly federal agents were raiding homes in Los Angeles and Miami. By April 2025, prosecutors stacked enough evidence for a racketeering indictment, branding Bad Boy Records a criminal enterprise. Combs pleads not guilty, but he'll watch jury selection from a cell. Prosecutors want decades of assault claims read aloud in court to show pattern. Defense attorneys call it a money grab. Journalists covering the case say sealed exhibits include photos, guest logs, and NDA-shredding testimony from former staff. A jury will decide which phrase sticks. Meanwhile, two blacklisted voices were quietly finding each other. April 2025, a live stream claimed Howard and Williams are fielding seven-figure offers for an uncensored podcast. No studio handlers, no NDAs, just two mics and an electric kettle left boiling. Fans flooded X with memes. Give them 5 episodes and Hollywood burns. Industry execs reportedly scrambled, worried which names might drop in episode 1. Neither man confirms, but both drop sly winks in interviews. Imagine the possibilities. Howard breaking down the exact day Marvel replaced him, Williams reading screenshots of late-night texts from studio heads, both men comparing notes on who tried to lure them to which mansion at which hour. If the show lands, expect dates, locations, and the kind of receipts that can't be laughed off as conspiracy. Yet the bigger story isn't a podcast, it's a mirror held to an entire industry. Whether it's a lace hemline, a mansion invite, or a contract lined with invisible ink, the game appears designed to see who'll blink first. Critics say Howard and Williams are clinging to outdated ideas of manhood, mistaking creative flexibility for emasculation. Supporters call them canaries in a diamond-studded coal mine, warning that consent erodes one compromise at a time. The argument lands hardest in barbershops and Twitter threads, where young actors debate lines they swear they'll never cross. One side says Hollywood's just pushing boundaries. The other says those boundaries only seem to push in one direction, towards surrender. Either way, the question lands the same. If the price of entry is your identity, is the spotlight worth it? Because once you trade it, you can't buy it back, no matter how many award shows you host. But there's a larger ripple effect at play. When a star trades silence for access, the fallout rarely stops with them. Bodyguards sign gag orders, assistants carry secrets that chew through sleep, and aspiring artists see the compromise and assume it's normal. That normalization becomes the real currency, an unwritten rule that says, this is just how the game works. Break the rule, and you're labeled difficult. Follow it, and you risk waking up one morning unable to remember where your own lines used to be. Howard's refusal reportedly cost him $20 million in back-end points when Marvel recast him. Williams' defiance cost him a decade of prime late-night exposure, but both men say the alternative, living with a lie, would have cost them more than money. Their stance turns the spotlight on the silent middle, the dozens of actors, writers, and dancers who felt the same pressure but swallowed it because rent was due. And that leads us to the final act. Every generation of entertainers has its rebel choir, people who burn bridges so future artists can cross without paying toll. Richard Pryor fought studio censors so comics could cuss on stage. Prince painted slave on his cheek so musicians could own their masters. Howard and Williams may never wear that level of purple royalty, but they're swinging at the same chains, trying to snap a link or two before the lights go out. If their rumored podcast materializes, it might become a digital time capsule, a living ledger of who offered what, when, and for how much silence. Whether that ledger changes Hollywood or merely entertains the internet, the very act of writing it down chips away at the culture of hush money. And once the hush cracks, even a little, echoes pour through. Next month, cameras will jam the courthouse steps as Combs faces charges that could cage him for life. Howard will likely be on a film set nobody's hyping, Williams on stage roasting the headlines in real time. They may never share a microphone, but their warnings already echo. Beware the deal too sweet to question, the party where the door locks from the outside, the role that asks you to strip more than clothes. Hollywood keeps its brightest lights on the red carpet, so you won't notice the shadows just beyond. Yet shadows don't stay silent forever. The only question now is whether we'll listen, before the next rising star learns the hard way that fame's brightest glare can also be its darkest trap. So, as you scroll past the next viral clip of a celeb popping champagne on a yacht, ask yourself, what would you trade for that view? And if the answer costs more than you can stomach, maybe the yacht is already sinking.